Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome home. Welcome back to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and our show today is the Listening Mentor Show, one of my absolute favorites. And our topic today is families know which buttons to press. With the holiday season. Happy holidays, everyone. Let's welcome the star of our show, Caroline Heward. She is a phenomenal person personally and professionally. She's helping people all over the world. She's helping them bust their stress. Soon she's going to be a songwriter, because I know that's going to be a song that's available for people to enjoy. Let's welcome Caroline to the show. Hello.
A song.
I love it. Singing makes you feel better. So why not put it into a song?
It does. When you sing, you're singing from the emotional center, the second chakra. And that's where all the endorphins and the feel-good energy is. So when you sing, you always feel better. Even if you can't sing, you feel better.
Some other people might not feel that great when somebody's singing, but that's okay. So it's Absolutely. Good to have you back, my friends. And it's nice to see you here during the holiday season as we close out our last Listening Mentor show for this year, 2023. Any reflections you want to share before we get to our topic?
There's one big one that I'd like to share in the fact that I'm no longer living in the capital in London. I'm living in sunny and windy, rainy Yorkshire. And what I have noticed is, although I'm mortgage free, it's a lot chillier up here than it was in the capital. But, jokes aside, one of my big shares that I want to share with people is don't limit your dreams. Dream big, because you never know what you might create. And I created this new home in the middle of sunny, windy Yorkshire, but it's a whole house, a period property, which I really wanted. And I was very fixed on that. And I made it happen. I did do a lot of work to make it happen, but I made it happen. So look at your dreams. Are you keeping them small, or are you dreaming big? And are you creating what you really, truly desire in your life? And I feel at the closeout of 2023, I've created exactly what I wanted in terms of my living and home. I wanted to be mortgage free, and I wanted to own my home outright, and I wanted to get rid of the mortgage. And I've done all of those things. And that's my biggest thing that I've ever done to date. So dream big, because you never know what you can create.
I love it. Congratulations. It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I want to share with that just yesterday, I'm not going to say what it is. I'll make an announcement soon, but there's something that I wanted to do, and I was afraid to actually ask. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to ask this person if I can have this opportunity. And I asked, and the person said yes. And I just couldn't believe it. And I thought to myself, why is it that we don't ask for what we want? And that'll be another show. But today, let's talk about families knowing which buttons to push, how they trigger us. Tell us a little bit about triggering and what it means.
Well, triggering is something, it's like it's a therapy word. And a lot of people in normal layman's terms probably won't understand what triggering means. So let me dissect what that word means. Have you ever been in a situation where you're in a conversation and somebody said something and you feel immediately upset or irrational, or you kind of blow out of all proportion and kind of respond and react in a way that's quite negative? You ever had that experience? Well, this is a trigger that you have experienced, that somebody said something to you and immediately you have reacted in a probably quite negative way. And the other person might be recounting a situation or telling them how they feel. And when you are triggered, it's what it brings up in you that you are responding to about what they've said or about a situation that you're in or they're describing. And it's almost very irrational. And it's not about what the person said or done. It's about your internal representation of what's being said, how you have heard and experienced that communication. And so we can be triggered by all sorts of things, and they're usually from times when we've had a difficult situation, and it might be a word, it might be a song, it might be a phrase that somebody said or an opinion, but it's where we feel very uncomfortable to the point that we have to almost express irrationally what we don't like about the situation or what we don't like about what's being said.
Thank you so much for sharing that definition so that people can understand more fully what triggering is. So when you think about something that triggered you, Caroline, you don't have to be specific. It can even be some made up scenario for a role play. What was the feeling that came into your body initially? And then as a therapist, what skills did you use to acknowledge it and then release it?
Well, obviously, we're all triggered for different reasons. You know, it can be personal, it can be family, it can be a professional situation, because we're human. And I'm never going to take that away from anybody. We're all human. And I am also human. So just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean to say that I have, you know, I'm not human and I don't have reaction and response, because we all are. It's what we do with the learning from it. So it's the wisdom that we gain from it. And, you know, when we say, well, I experienced that reaction, what can I do differently when that scenario comes up again? And that's the wisdom from it, and that's the grace. So what we feel is almost an irrational emotional response. And it might be that if we've heard a few words, or we don't want to offend or upset somebody. And sometimes it's about making a decision, or it could be that the person wants something from you and you're holding back because you need more time. So for instance, there was a professional, I was in a professional setting, And the scenario was that it didn't work, and I was very upset about it. And I didn't say anything. I just went very quiet and didn't feel I had a great experience. And then somebody turned around to me and said, that was all your fault. And I immediately went very angry because it cut across my professional values. And I got very upset, very angry, and really irrational. And I realized it was because professionalism is one of my values, and because it cut across a value, I became irrational and angry and very upset. And I held it in. I held my response in because I just thought, it is what it is. I'm just going to, deal with it. It was just a bad experience. But actually, it was the feedback that I got from a couple of people essentially telling me that it was my fault. So this is what we call transference. When somebody says it's all your fault, it's nothing to do with me. And I wouldn't take it on, and I essentially just completely burst a gasket and, got very upset, very angry. And what I did was, because one of the people wanted to talk to me, I was so upset and so irrational, I avoided them because I didn't want another situation. And I did my best to not speak to them, to avoid them, because I didn't want my rational response to come out. I wanted to sort out my response and my reaction and how angry and upset that I was before I reconnected and spoke to that person. But what happened was this person pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed until the point that I was cornered at the end of that particular day, where I had avoided any confrontation at all. And then they were pushing again out of the classroom. And I couldn't hold myself back. And I literally said some things I'm not very happy about that I've said. And I told the truth. And sometimes you have to kind of pepper the truth, especially our Britishism, with some niceties. But I just lashed out, and that was something that I was wanting to avoid. And I couldn't, because the person kept pushing to get a response from me. And I'm human. And in the end, I responded. And that has literally blown apart that friendship. And sometimes I look at it and, I wanted to make it up. I wanted to apologize instantly and explain. And I did all of that. And then what came out of that was, sometimes a friendship or relationship is for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And essentially, I believe that friendship is over. And no matter how much I wanted to continue that friendship, actually, it's over. And there's been 2 wrongs, and it's because our sacred contract is complete. And then I stopped trying and I let go. And now I don't have to give this person lots of free consultations. So there is an upside to the fact that that was ending. And the reason I've shared it with you is because when we do our best to avoid the very space that I was avoiding the confrontation, pushed the other person into coming at me many times to get a response from me. So the fact that I was retreating made them come towards me in much more of a vigorous way. So my backing off meant the person was coming towards me. And that's what we call the energy dance. And somebody wins and somebody loses. And actually, that's where the confrontation happened, because I didn't manage to avoid the conflict. I didn't do a good enough job of avoiding the conflict. And the person that was coming towards me and wanting the confrontation, in the end, got it.
Thank you so much for that share. That was a lot. That's, yeah.
But this is the humanness of, sort of the dramas that we play out. If you're avoiding something, then what will happen is somebody will come at you if they want to get that confrontation. I don't like to put myself in a confrontation situation, so I will retreat. But that energy of retreating the behavior of the other person, if they want to get the explosion and get the confrontation, they will then come at you, and it just depends how strong you are to avoid the confrontation. And sadly, that particular instance, I wasn't strong enough. I didn't avoid the confrontation. And then I responded in a way that I didn't really want to respond. So my response was to avoid it, but the person was not having it. so in the end, you know, the confrontation was there, the friendship got destroyed. And now I don't have to give lots of free consultations anymore to that particular person. So, you know, I believe that there's no wrong or right there. There was two instances that, you know, both people were unhappy, but the net result is I'm not on tap anymore.
Well, that's a big plus. That's
It
that's
is.
good.
It is, because now it means that I've freed up some energy to do some other things. So I don't feel now, I feel that it was supposed to end. It's just that sometimes we hold on to something that's not working. And when we hold on, because we don't want to end a friendship and we don't want to end the, you know, sort of that connection. But this particular person, it's on a training course, and the training course is over almost. So
It's like the wheels fell off and you were
yeah,
able to take the vehicle and keep on going.
and I wanted to make it up. I wanted to, you know, and I apologized, and then she didn't read my messages, and I just kind of thought, well, why am I pushing to make it right? You know, and actually this is when what happens, because we don't want to be wrong, we don't want to be, you know, sort of out of sorts, we don't like to be at the end of a conflict situation, nobody does. But when I kind of thought about it and got upset about it, what I did was I let go. I let go of what wasn't working. And if the friendship is supposed to continue, it will come, what was working will come back, because you cannot lose what's real. You can only lose the bits that don't work. And so what I feel,
you can't lose what you don't have either. It's
no,
also, when you think about it, whether it's you, me, anybody, it's happened to probably a large number of people, that you chase after someone or something and you can't get it. And you think to yourself, well, why do I have to chase this person? If they really wanted me in their life, they would meet me halfway. And when that doesn't happen, it's kind of a wake-up call, because our own behavior we become triggered and we start acting irrationally, highly emotional, making decisions we probably shouldn't make in that state of mind, because we're continuously chasing that carrot, so to speak. And then when we get it, we find out it's not a carrot anyway. It was a turnip that was rotten. So,
and what I'm taking from that is it was right that, you know, sort of we combusted to let go, because what we both did was let go of something that wasn't working. And that leaves room for whatever was real in that friendship to still be there, because you cannot lose, or it just won't go away. What's real will remain, but what's difficult and what's challenging will be let go of. And that's what I feel that we both done, which is beautiful. It's not an easy journey, but it's beautiful that we both let go of what didn't work, so that then we make room for a new chapter in a new year to see where it goes, to see what's real, if there's a friendship to move forward into. And if there isn't, then, you know, we did an incredible friendship in that period of time that we were together.
thank you so much again for sharing that. I love real life stories. Let's talk now about families. Families may know us better than anyone else, sometimes better than we know ourselves if we haven't done the work on ourselves yet. And we can know exactly how to push someone's buttons because we've known them so long. We know them so well. Why is that? Not how long we've known them, but why is it that we know exactly what to do to drive them crazy?
Well, families, we don't choose our families, do we? We are in our families, and they do know us well. They know almost when we lie. They know when we're upset about something, and when we've not been quite truthful, or when we're sneaking around, or when we're feeling something we're not saying something. And families are there to almost test us so that we move through the challenges with them. Families know us really well because we've grown up with them. We know each other in such an intimate way that many of our friendships or colleagues that we work with, or our partnerships in terms of work, business, or our social friendships don't know us in the same way. And it could be that one word, we might say one word, and it will flare into an argument because that one word will trigger. And families do this. Why do we do it? I don't know. We do. And I'm not sure what the answer is to it, but we do. The answer from the perspective of what do you do when you're triggered by something that somebody said to you, a member of family, your mum or a sibling or a cousin or a nephew, is to not react straight away, to literally let it sink in, let it bounce, and go into the place of not reacting. The challenge is when our families are saying something to us, we tend to react straight away. Now, we're all human, and I'm not saying it's wrong to react. I'm saying that if we stopped, and if the person is in what I would call an episode, so they want to be right, for instance, like, this is the way I see it, this is the way that it is, and I know I'm right and you're wrong. And this right and wrong game doesn't ever go anywhere. And sometimes you almost have to say, to not respond and react, to let them have their say and literally say nothing, knowing what's right for you and what's right for them, because we all see different things, because it depends on the filters that we look through and the filters that we see through. And so what might be completely right for that member of family is completely right for them from their perspective, and your perspective will be different. So nobody's right and nobody's wrong. It's just about how we respond and how we react and how we're triggered by what's being said. And as I said, we're all human. It's sometimes easier to not react and to be silent and let the person say what they're saying, because sometimes there are some members of families that say things to trigger you, to press your buttons, to get a reaction, because they get energy from it. And so it is important to have some semblance of when you do react and when you don't react, and how you feel after that reaction.
Brilliant as always, Caroline. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as we approach the new year, of course, people all over the world will be making resolutions. I don't make any resolutions because I feel like I've been working on myself throughout the year. So it's not like the calendar is going to change and da-da, this is going to happen. But people are making resolutions. Is there something that people can do to work on being less triggered? In other words, you're going to a family event, you're having dinner, you're going to be together for however many hours. You already know that Aunt Sue is going to talk about this and you don't want to talk about it, and they're going to have the football game on, you don't want to watch it. So how can we prepare ourselves before we even go so that we're not triggered? Or is that impossible?
Well, it's really great in hindsight if you know what's going to happen in terms of like the football game being on, because I'm not keen on football, and there tends to be a lot of sport being played in my family home with my brothers, because they're all into sport. And so certainly I've had occasions when I felt very triggered by it, because it's very loud and it drowns out social interaction and connection. And then there's a focus on the goal or the non-goal that gets scored that I have no interest in. So it's actually about how we choose to be. And if your family are interested in the game, that you actually focus on what's good for you, rather than focusing on what you don't want to experience. Focus on what is going to make you feel good in that scenario, knowing that there's going to be a football game being played, and knowing that you don't like it and you're not very happy about it, to actually not engage in it and engage in the feeling of not being happy about the game. And then suddenly you can be in an environment where the game is going on, the football game, and you are actually having a wonderful conversation with somebody else that is not interested in the game and interested in having a connection and a social conversation because of the holidays.
A huge iguana just fell off the roof. I don't know if
Oh
you
my
heard.
gosh.
I don't know if you heard it or not.
I didn't.
Anyway, sorry. I've actually, I know of situations where, let's say you're going to an event, a family gathering, friends gathering, and there is a game on that the person will bring their device, their computer or their iPad, and they'll watch something else at a very low level. It's like sort of like a competition with the other thing. And of course, it doesn't work, but it's out of spite. I don't think it comes from a place of kindness. I think sometimes I've seen people, and maybe I've done it myself as well, where you're not looking at what is behind the reason for this. Why is the game on? Well, because it is Christmas Day, and typically the football games, I think you call them soccer, or the opposite, with the pigskin. The game is played then, people look forward to it, they're big fans of the teams, and it just happens to be on Christmas Day. So to me, in that kind of scenario, I would just have the mindset that the reason why this is happening is not to spite anyone. It's not to have a scenario where it's uncomfortable because it's so loud. It's because they enjoy the game. The game happens to be on a holiday and they're going to be watching it. So maybe have a different mindset, that maybe try to watch the game for a little while and see if you can learn anything from it or be part of that camaraderie, or maybe relocate to a different room and maybe offer to help in the kitchen, or I don't know, just find some way to appease yourself that you're not causing a problem.
Well, I love your insights in terms of how to respond, because my thing is to retreat to the kitchen because I'm on kitchen duties, or socialize because I'm at the back end of the room away from the TV, and then socialize in that different way. Also it's good to have a perspective that a football game, a soccer game, or some kind of sport can bring people together. So it can make people feel harmonious as well. So if you're not interested in the sport, then it can create a challenge. But if you are interested in the sport, it can actually be a bringing of people together, and it can make a lot of camaraderie, a lot of cheery, atmosphere. So it is about different perspectives, in terms of what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. And I certainly have nephews that love the football. And if there's a goal that's being scored, I might turn around and say, so who scored then? Who's it for? Go goal. And you kind of just get almost swept into the goodness of it, sort of the celebration of it, rather than having to watch the whole thing and get really into it from my perspective. I do feel that if you are a sport person, sometimes it actually brings you together and makes you feel really cheery. Now, if the person that's watching the game and their team have lost, then I've actually experienced people feeling very upset and being very angry that they missed the goal, or they missed a pass, or they didn't do what they should have done. And then there's all sorts of debate about the game in terms of that it didn't give them what they were hoping for. And then there's all sorts of upset and angriness. So that also needs to be looked at in terms of somebody who's really into the game and how they respond to it, and how it affects the rest of the family.
Yes. And, something that comes up for me when you were sharing is, if you think about some of the football stadiums we have here in the States, I don't know the exact numbers, but tens of thousands of people can fill these stadiums. So obviously it is something that brings people together, much like a concert. And I think the other thing is, if you're going somewhere and previous experience, that they're going to have a game on, or even playing games. There are lots of families who like to play games. We've always played Scrabble or Monopoly, and there are some people who are definitely not into Scrabble. And I found out a few times it's because they don't know how to spell, so they felt intimidated. But you can maybe adjust your arrival time. If that's going to be bothering you, that the game's on, maybe you come after dinner for dessert, or maybe you offer to come earlier and drop off some appetizers. I don't know. There's ways that you can think about it that you don't have to get yourself triggered. And the other thing is, once a person becomes triggered or emotional, that can change the energy for everyone. It's like, oh, you just took all the air out of the room.
if there's an upset or somebody that's come in, have you ever had that experience where somebody's come in, they've had an argument in their own family and they've come to your family and they've kind of come with a bear with a sore head kind of thing, that they're not very happy and they come with a bit of a face on them, and then you've got to try and, you know, socialize and be okay with them. You don't know actually what's happened or been said, and what scenario they've come from, but they've come, you know, sort of with a thunderstorm in their head, and they've got, you know, sort of what us British would say, got a bit of a face on, and it that you don't know how to respond to that. You know that they're not happy, you know, so when you're trying to make them happy, that can create some challenges because you don't know what's caused it. It could be that there's been an argument somewhere, or an upset, or a situation that they're not comfortable with, or it might be that they just don't want to be there, you know. So you don't know why they've come with their face on. You know?
Exactly. Well, and here's another thing. I think this still triggers me. I don't know why. Maybe you can psychoanalyze me and let me know. But I've shared this before. My name's Jacqueline. When I was younger, people called me Jackie. And my mother, God rest her soul, she always called me Jackie. When she did, it didn't bother me. But now it bothers me unless it's in an athletic type of situation. So if I'm going to work out, I'm taking a class and I'm called Jackie, I don't mind. But otherwise, it really bothers me. And I don't know why. Someone I know well just called me Jackie. And I thought, well, you just did that on purpose. I already asked you to stop calling me Jackie, but you did it anyway. So there's behavior patterns like that where we know something's going to annoy someone and we do it or say it anyway. What's behind that?
It's a really good analogy that you've given, names, because I'm really specific on names, and that's something that I feel very particular on as well. I've always been Caroline. And when somebody says, you know, what's your name? I will always give them my name. Now, some people might shorten it to Carol, Carolyn, Cal, all sorts of, you know, shortenings. And I always ask people, and I think it's about your intention, where you come from. So if I introduce myself, I always give my full name. And when I ask people what their name is, whatever name they give me is the name I address them by. So if they say my name's Jim, then I will say, hi, Jim. If they say my name's Jimmy, I will say, hi, Jimmy. But if it's, you know, so I won't actually change from how they've introduced themselves to me, because I feel your name is important, and you wouldn't normally introduce yourself by a name that you don't like. And certainly I feel that when somebody says, like, sort of, for instance, Steve and Stephen, if somebody introduces themselves as Steve and you start calling them Stephen, it could get upsetting for someone. And one of my brothers, he's shortened his name now, but because I'm his family, I've always called him by his full name. And he said to one of us, I can't remember which one it was, he said, look, my name is not that, it's this. And he said, you know, I'm short and my name is shorter now. That's what I respond to. And it's fascinating how it can trigger us and affect us. But, you know, my family is my family, and I've always used their full names because that's what I've grown up with. And, you know, and it's not that I'm chastising them, it's just what I've grown up with. Even my aunts and uncles, I call them by their full name, you know, so it's Auntie Linda, Uncle Morris, you know, and I've always done that because that's how I've grown up. But certainly when anybody introduces themselves, I listen for their name. And then I say, what do you prefer to be called?
But see, you're very professional and you're respectful. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I was in corporate for however many years. Hi, my name's Jacqueline Kerbeck. Hey, Jackie, how's it going? Or hey, Jack. And I just think, I don't understand. So what's behind when someone doesn't address you by your name? I was told someone we both know said that they were going to continue calling me Jackie. And I said, why? And he said, because that's who you are to me. And I said, well, how did I get there? I wasn't even on the bus. I don't even know how I got there. And his answer was because Jacqueline is so formal. and Jackie is more carefree. And that's the person I see in you. And I said, well, I don't know where that person is that you see, but I really would appreciate if you call me Jacqueline. And the person to this day still calls me Jackie.
That's their stuff. That's their filters. That's their perspective. Not yours. So there's something in that for them, which is why they're responding that way to you. It's not that you said or did anything, and it might be that they have a Jacqueline in their past, in their history, that was very, sort of not very nice, and they know a Jackie that's very friendly, and so they think of you, and so they've just like sort of got all this in their head, and so that's how it's come out. But it's through their filters, not yours. And it doesn't matter how professional or short or friendly it sounds. What it matters is that the person's name is the person's name. And I feel that if you love your name, I mean, some people change their names because they don't like their names. But if you love your name and you introduce yourself by your name, then I feel from that perspective that we should be honoring of that person and use their name, because that's how we identify with ourselves, by our name.
Yes, it is. So I think as we bring that part to a closure, it's basically to avoid starting something, address the person by the name that they give you, which makes a lot of sense when I think about the Dr. Jacqueline, because so many people call me Dr. Jacqueline, and I really like that. I identify my necklace as Dr. Jacqueline. I see that's who I see myself as, but other people, it's still with the Jackie. So anyway, enough of that topic. So as we look at our subject, families know which buttons to press, and we're coming to the end of our show, sadly. What are some strategies, some tips that we can work on ourselves and maybe not even bring it up to anyone else? So an example would be, hey, Caroline, I was watching this show today and they said this, that, and the other. And I just want to let you know that you really do trigger me. And I'm going to try some of these things that I learned, and we'll see if it still happens. But maybe take it on yourself and just keep it to yourself and see how it works. Which side of that coin do you think is more effective?
It depends on the person and where they are. We're all in our own world, and yes, it's good to self-reflect, because when we're reacting and responding and it's negatively, the person that is suffering is ourselves. So when we are reacting and we're getting upset, we are suffering in that space. And so it's important to, I feel, make sure that we're not suffering, because if we're getting angry or upset, it's not actually upsetting the other person, it's upsetting you. That's getting triggered by what's being said. And so one of my strategies is to go quiet, is to avoid the conflict situation until, one of my trainers said, you just need to get out of the way of yourself, get out of the way of you and your stuff, and just move forward without all that stuff that you're holding on to that doesn't serve you. And I think it's really worth considering that when we respond, we're responding from a place of ego. We're responding from a place of being right and the other person being wrong, and being in blame and shame game, which is why I tend to, when I can and when I feel it's right to, I go silent and I avoid the confrontation. I handle it inside, and then I come back when I'm okay to respond in the way that I feel is appropriate for that person. But sometimes you don't get given the choice or the chance, and we respond and react in that place of emotion. And responding and reacting from a place of emotion is not good, because it hurts you, not the other person.
I really love what you shared. And I think, just to add something onto that, I think there are certain topics that trigger people. And one of them is money, for sure. Oh, I know I made more money than you last year. Really? What kind of comment is that? I mean, that just is a trigger. That it's like you're inciting a confrontation, or you're throwing something on the flames to make them build. Or nicknames. I know someone used to call me Princess, and I would say, Okay, based on my life story, I don't see where the princess fits in, but I don't know. Maybe they're crowning a new kind of princess. I'm not sure. But the person finally stops with that. But there are certain things that people say and do that trigger us, and we can't be prepared for all of them. But I like what you just said. And I think also to add to that, you can take a deep breath in, and it's almost like let it deflect off of you, and you accept and realize that it is not about you, it's about them. And I know you probably have had this experience too, where someone says something to the other person and the other person doesn't respond, and it's kind of like now it's deflected back on that person. The person's thinking, wow, I feel so dumb, I wonder why I said that. And you didn't say anything, you were just totally silent.
And that's it's projection. When somebody says something, they're projecting onto you and pushing their agenda. And when you retreat and don't respond, that's your place of resisting that conflict. But when somebody has an agenda to push for confrontation, we're all human. And so that would be that person's strategy to push to get a reaction. And so it depends on how strong you are in terms of how you respond to somebody pushing that button, because that's their thing. And it will be a behavior pattern. If somebody is into confrontation, they will push a button or needle until they get a reaction, because there will be something there in their behaviors that does that. And they'll be doing that not just with one person, they'll be doing that with everybody. It will be a pattern of behavior, not that's personal to any one person. It'll be their pattern of behavior to get a response. And it depends on how you handle that. My response is to avoid confrontation and to allow myself to digest what's been said, to work through it. But, as I said, we're all human and we all have our thresholds. We all have our places where we can't take anymore. But then that's ours to handle. That's my stuff, and the person's stuff to handle, and how they've been is their stuff to handle. And when we are pushing somebody's button, generally we know.
Yes, we do. We know we're going to get some kind of response. And I would also think this could be another topic for another show, that when we are pushing someone's buttons, it can become abusive. It can be very mentally unhealthy for the other person. And I've even seen situations where a marriage or a partnership, and it's this kind of needling, I like to call it, like it's not, it's so overt. It's kind of persistent and it's always there, but you couldn't say that it's a huge argument, but it's little comments here and there to try to get the person off their footing. And eventually it just starts to add up, and then the person loses their self-esteem, and they can't imagine leaving because this is what they're used to, and they don't think anything of themselves. So I think that when we look at these types of things, triggers, that we have to be able to respond in an appropriate way, that we're not causing ourselves and our mental health to go down the drain.
This response mechanism of somebody needling in that way on a constant basis is a form of abuse, mental, emotional abuse. And a reaction, a very simple reaction to that, is to not respond, to shut down, so that they can't be affected. And so that can diminish the person that's in that situation by shutting down, by not responding, by not saying anything, so they don't get hurt. But what happens is the energy game happens, and that deflects back to the person that's given the abuse. And then the person is diminished, that's actually shut down and gone very quiet. Do you want to stay in that kind of relationship? Sometimes we do, and sometimes we brew in that relationship, and sometimes we get to a point that we can't cope with anymore. So it just depends on where we are. Why do people stay in abusive relationships for 5, 10, 20, 30 years? It's because it's what they know and what they're used to, even though they're not happy with it, until there might become a point that they say, no more. I can't suffer like this anymore. I don't want to live in this space anymore. And that takes a very brave person to do that, to say, no, stop. I'm not going to shut down anymore. I'm just going to leave this situation. So we're all in these different challenges, and it depends on how we respond and react. And when we shut down, it means that we shut off feeling, experiencing, and living life. So we go into autopilot. So we just exist rather than experiencing life. That is a strategy, but it's not a strategy for living life.
Not a long one, for sure. Caroline, it's been an absolute pleasure as we close out our last show of 2023. I really have enjoyed this year. I'm looking forward to next year. How can you help people, and who would you like to shout out, to connect, to follow you so that they can be in your tutelage to feel better and to bust their stress?
Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. You can follow me on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I post all the videos on my social media pages. LinkedIn and Facebook are the two platforms I generally use. Or you can reach out to me on nomorestress@live.co.uk, or call me on +44 if you're international. If you're local, 07523 120 189. I offer a free consultation. If you're suffering any type of stress, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, whether it's behavioral, if there's a relationship issue, the kind of thing that we've been talking about today, if you are in a situation where you're finding it hard to cope, especially in this period of time, the festive time brings out sometimes the worst of times for people that are alone. It brings out very difficult situations. That everybody is, a lot of people are in families and having fun. This sometimes for some people is the worst time of the year. So if you're feeling any type of stress, anxiety, or depression, if you are struggling with a relationship or a bereavement, and if you're struggling with just life in general because you can't cope, reach out. I offer a free consultation initially, and then I offer a program of working with you to help you break through the patterns that cause you to suffer in life. And I look forward to helping you transform your life and live in a better way so that you respond and react and you live in a better way that's more fulfilling for you.
And look forward to the new hit single, Bust Your Stress, coming sometime in the future. All right, we're signing out now. Our next show is coming up. It's the iguana is coming back. It's coexistence and sustainability with pet psychic Amina. And our topic today is understanding the language of dogs. So I look forward to that one.
That's fun. It's been an absolute pleasure to be with our viewers in 2023, and I really am thrilled to be part of this platform, and I look forward to seeing many of you and new viewers in 2024. And I'm now signing out from 2023.
I'm signing out as well. And thanks to our new viewers on Instagram. We're happy to have you here. Happy holidays, everyone. Come back and see Caroline and myself on the Listening Mentor next Friday. All right. We'll see you again soon. Bye.